and welcome back to Simply Quilting. I'm Nancy, and today I'm sharing with you part 3 of my little series called Can These Scraps Live Again? And if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, where I actually constructed the blocks in part 1, and then in part 2 we made the quilt top with sashing and cornerstones. And so now I'm just doing a little edge-to-edge free motion quilting, simple swirl pattern. So as you can see here, I'm just going around and doing like about a half of a swirl. I'll come into a point and then I'll go back out, and I'll try to make some swirls going a different direction to kind of give it a little bit of depth and variety. So these swirls are really simple to make. You can practice if you're not a Longarm quilter yet, but you would like to become one. You can practice on paper and pencil. You can practice on a wet, dry board with a marker. Just to kind of get that, what they call muscle memory, from your brain to your hand. And it just takes practice. And then if you do have a long arm and you haven't really gotten started on it yet, it's a good, fast, easy, all over pattern to do. And just put you a small piece of sandwich on there. When I say sandwich, I mean the backing and the batting and the top, maybe even just plain pieces of fabric. You don't have to have a quilt made. You can just use a plain piece of fabric. That works just as well for practice. And if it's not great, your puppy dog will love it anyway. Okay, so it seems as though I lost at the game of Bobbin Chicken. That's where you hope you get to the end of your row before your bobbin runs out. So I didn't quite make it, did I? So sometimes when the bobbin runs out, it'll leave a few really loose stitches. So what I'm doing there is I'm picking those little loose stitches out, and then I'm kind of going over that little area a little bit more when I start back up, so that I don't have threads coming loose on my quilt. And you can see I had a few little extra ones there. I wanted to get those out. So I just used a pin to lift them out. They were really loose. But you want to be sure and reinforce that with your thread when you go back over it. Okay, so I'll just continue quilting that. And yeah, we're almost to the end there. And like I said, it just takes practice. Now I have a 15-inch throat space on my long arm. It's technically a mid-arm. It's made by the Grace Company, and it's called a Unique 15R. And I have a 10-foot frame that I'm quilting on. And it's done a pretty good job for me. I've been quilting on this for about 5 years. I've been quilting, period, for about 5 years. And I've really enjoyed it. And when I first started quilting, I went to YouTube and learned from a lot of good quilters on YouTube, and from a good friend that I have at my church. But I just want to kind of give back a little bit, because I've been given so much knowledge and instruction. I'm not the perfect quilter yet by any means, but I get by. And I can do some custom quilting with feathers and things like that, but a lot of times I'll just do an edge to edge like this on a little quilt that I'm going to give away, and makes it fast and easy, and it's durable. I do my bindings on machine for the most part, um, because they last longer through multiple washings and things like that. So it looks like I'm coming to the end here. And I've already stitched that edge down with my ruler. When I say with my ruler, I'm talking about a quilting ruler. I have my ruler base on my machine, and I leave it on there all the time so that I can have a flat surface to quilt on. And then I'll use that 1/4 inch thick quilting ruler to do my quilting with when I'm like doing the edges or making a straight line. Okay, I am just about to roll this quilt up and get to that last row. So what you see me doing here is pinning the sort of towards the end of my quilt, the bottom of my quilt top. I'm pinning that down through all 3 layers, my top, my batting, and my backing. And I've got my left hand up under to kind of stabilize while I'm putting those pins in with the right hand. Now I float my quilts for the most part, unless I have a really big one. Small quilts like this, I'll float the whole quilt. And what that means is that I will bring all 3 of those layers over top of the belly bar. I don't wind anything on that bar. And then I'll just use the clamps to hold it on. Now, if I don't have enough left over of my backing to do that, then I will have to attach my backing to my leader, which is on that belly bar. But in this case, I have enough, and I usually do because I mainly do my own quilts, and I usually leave a little extra. And you can notice there I've got extra on, I've got about 5 or 6 inches on either side as well of batting and backing beyond the quilt top. That's so that you can have something to attach your end clamps onto to help you keep the wrinkles out. Okay, so once I've pinned that through all 3 layers, then I'm going to take and roll it up on the take-up bar, which is the one in the back, and I'll test it and make sure that I can get all the way to the edge, and I can on that time, and still reach the top part of it. So then what I'll do is I'll move my pins down a little bit more towards the bottom because I couldn't get that far the last time when I had it pinned. I had it clamped. So I'll get those on there. I'm leaving enough room that I can run my machine along that edge with my ruler, and you'll see what I'm talking about in just a minute. But I'll put all my clamps back on, and then I'll tighten it up just a little bit. You want it to have a little bit of give, but not too much. And that kind of just comes with practice. So I'm just moving those pins down there. That just keeps it nice and steady while I'm clamping everything back down. And I'm actually lifting that up and pulling it out straight to make sure there are no wrinkles left in there. And this is a smaller quilt, so I'm just going to use 2 clamps on there, and I'll just ratchet it a little bit and it'll tighten it right up. And then I'll be ready to do those edges. Now I usually put my end clamps, I attach those to my backing until I have done stay stitch those ends. Once I've stay stitched those ends, then you might see me even put my clamps over top of the batting as well. Now I don't have the clamps on this end right now because if I did that, the machine would be in the way of me stay stitching those ends. Some people call it basting. I just usually use my regular stitch instead of putting it on a basting stitch. What you see me doing there is bringing my bottom thread up. To do that, you just put your needle down, bring it back up, and pull that other thread up to the top. If you don't do that, then you'll wind up with a mess of thread on the back. So see, I've already stitched that one down, so now I can use the clamps on top of the batting and it's fine. Some of these things you learn by trial and error. Some you can learn from, like I said, watching other people. There are all kinds of ideas out there, so you just have to see what works for you. And now just bring that ruler around to the back of my needle and just run it right along the edge of that ruler. Now I'm using an open toe foot, which some people disagree with that, but I like it because I can see where my needle is and what it's doing, but you do have to be more careful. I do have a ruler foot, a regular ruler foot that I use once in a while, but most of the time I use this one. I've just learned to manipulate it, so it works very well for me. But I didn't start with this foot. I started with a regular round ruler foot. Okay, now that I've got that tacked down, I'll just take those pins out and it's nice and stable now, and I will just finish quilting those little swirls from the left to the right. My machine, for some reason, it likes to go from left to right. Seems like it works better for me that way. I'm not sure why. But I have heard other people say that about their long arms as well. So enjoy the rest of this video, and then I will see you at the end. I forgot to mention earlier, you see my left hand on top of the quilt all the time. I learned to use just my right hand to guide my machine with. I don't know why, but it just seems to work better for me. It's not like I'm having to hold anything down. Not sure why that's more comfortable for me, but I've seen other quilters do that too. Just seems like I can drive better with one hand than with two. I think I'm a little jerkier when I'm using two hands to quilt with. All right, we are getting really close to the edge there. I'm slowing it back down so you can kind of see how I'm ending this up. It's always a great feeling when you put that last little bit of your design in that corner. So I'm just pulling my thread up again to sort of tie it off. When I say tie it off, I just pull it up, take a couple more stitches, and then clip those threads, and it is good. So all that is left to do now is cut it off the frame and then square it up a little if I need to with my rotary cutter, and then get the binding put on. I didn't video the binding, but you will see that in my next video if you'd like to see that. And speaking of my next video, while y'all were not watching, I actually made another quilt top. This quilt features candy canes in the sashings and Christmas trees in the cornerstones, and it has the same backing and will have the same binding. In the next video, I will actually show you how I loaded the quilt onto my long arm and some different details about that, and also I will show you how I put the binding on by machine. So please be sure and tune back in for that, and thanks so much for joining me at Simply Quilting. Have a blessed day.